My name is Allison White. I am 32 years old and work as a senior manager at Prescott International. My sister, Lucy, is 35 years old and a mother to 4-year-old twins, while my younger sister, Sophia, is 29 years old with a 6-month-old baby. Yes, life is ironic. Lucy got married right after graduating from university and chose the path of a typical housewife. Sophia is a freelance graphic designer, working from home while raising her child. And I have built my career in a 50-story office building in Manhattan. While others were building families, I spent my life buried in spreadsheets and in meeting rooms. That was my choice. At least, that's what I thought. Looking back, this choice had been gradually shaped over time. Although my parents were keen on education, they couldn't afford to send all 3 daughters to private universities. They paid all of Lucy's private university tuition. But when it was my turn, the situation changed dramatically. Allison, I'm sorry, we can't afford your fees. Sophia is next. I still remember my mother's apologetic face. They had spent their savings on Lucy's tuition, and for Sophia, they managed through educational loans and scholarships. But don't worry. Allison, you can get scholarships. True to their words, I won scholarships for high achievers. I covered the shortfall with another scholarship, delivering newspapers and tutoring. While my sisters enjoyed shopping with friends on weekends, I studied in the library and worked at a drugstore at night. That had become my normal routine. My days started with delivering newspapers at 5 a.m. While cycling through the residential area, I reviewed the previous day's lectures aloud. From 8 a.m. I was in the library writing reports, and after afternoon lectures, I went to my tutoring job. I averaged 4 hours of sleep. Allison, what about the upcoming exam? One day, Sophia burst into my room crying. She struggled with math, so I cut my own study time to tutor her. I bought a whiteboard, installed it in my room, and conducted 2-hour one-on-one sessions every night. As a result, Sophia passed her exam with flying colors. Lucy's relationship advice always started late at night. He hasn't contacted me. It seems like he went out with a female friend. Seeing my sister's tear-streaked face, I couldn't ignore her, even with an early morning newspaper delivery day coming up. Sometimes I even mediated between Lucy and her boyfriend. I accompanied my grandmother to the doctor twice a month. There were days I had to miss university. Having Allison with me makes me feel safe, my grandmother used to say. Those words always warmed my heart. I read lecture notes in the waiting room, awaiting the doctor's call. I consistently maintained top grades. How do you do it? Even when friends asked, I didn't have an answer. Perhaps striving for my family was my motivation. Allison is smart, she'll find her own way, my mother often said. Behind those words might have been the implicit expectation, so take care of the others. In reality, I had been the family's problem solver since my student days. My mother's words were both a source of pride and a heavy responsibility for me. This role as the family's problem solver had become part of my identity. I couldn't have imagined how it would affect my later life. On my desk, there's a family photo taken at my parents' silver wedding anniversary. My father, Robert, a gentleman, was a math teacher at a local high school. My mother, Debbie, a passionate woman, ran a small flower shop. In the photo, they were smiling happily. Next to it was a photo with my grandmother, Helen. When I was young, my grandmother often looked after us. Now at 85, her legs have weakened, and she needs assistance in her daily life. Yet her wisdom and kindness remain unchanged. One Friday afternoon, as I was preparing for an important meeting, my phone on my desk rang. It was Lucy. Allison, I need to talk to you. Her voice, usually cheerful, carried a note of caution this time. It's about our parents' 35th wedding anniversary. Sophia and I came up with a great idea. I looked up from the documents and leaned back in my chair. What is it? A family trip to Hawaii. 2 weeks during the Christmas break. The kids will be out of school, and it's perfect timing. I began to do the math in my head. Hawaii, Christmas season, the whole family. It seems like it will be quite expensive, I noted. Yes, that's why we thought the three of us could share the costs as a gift for our parents, Lucy suggested. It sounded reasonable. Indeed, our parents had dedicated 35 years to raising us. My ability to attend university was also thanks to their support. They more than deserved this vacation. That sounds good, I agreed. Lucy hesitated before continuing. Actually, I was hoping you could take on a bit more of the burden. More, I asked? Yes. Sophia and I have kids, so we have a lot of expenses. And you're single and earn a high salary, she explained. I was stunned. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened. True, I did earn a good salary, but that was the result of years of hard work. I swallowed my words and asked Lucy, "How much are we talking about?" When Lucy mentioned the figure, I was shocked. It was equivalent to 2 months of my salary. But this was a special occasion. All right. When I agreed, Lucy seemed relieved and hung up the phone. Later, a call from my mother followed. "Allison, thanks for the transfer this month. It always helps. And I was wondering if you could contribute a bit more to Grandma's caregiving costs. Your father and I are working hard, but it's still quite expensive," she said. I held back a sigh. My wallet seemed to be an open savings account for my family. I was already covering nearly half of my grandmother's home care costs. My grandmother had been living with my parents for several years now. However, while they claimed to be caring for her as a family, most of the actual caregiving was outsourced. In the midst of this, I was the only one who, despite my work schedule, frequently visited home to check on my grandmother. Considering everything, I couldn't just refuse. Reluctantly, I agreed to Lucy's request for travel funds and my mother's request for increased caregiving costs. I transferred the money to them that same day. After sending the money, I paused for a moment. Next month's rent, car loan, and money for my hobbies all crossed my mind. But as usual, I dismissed these thoughts. That evening, I returned to my apartment after work. As I gazed at the Manhattan skyline, I imagined the vacation in Hawaii, the blue ocean, white sand beaches, and quality time with family. Well, a vacation like that wouldn't be so bad, I muttered to myself. However, the dream didn't last long. A week later, Sophia called. "Allison, I need to ask you something," she said in a tone I already recognized. I had a feeling something troublesome was coming. "It's about Grandma." My stomach sank. My grandmother's condition had recently worsened. She struggled with stairs and needed assistance with bathing and meal preparation. Although she had caregivers visiting 3 times a week, it wasn't enough. While my parents insisted on caring as a family in reality, they were busy and left most of the burden to the caregivers and me. I visited my parents' home 2 to 3 times a week after work. I prepared meals appropriate for my grandmother's health, helped with her medication, and sometimes stayed late into the night. Meanwhile, Lucy and Sophia, citing their busy parenting schedules, hardly visited. "Allison, I want to move into a facility." My grandmother had said this several times. "I don't want to burden you, and I might make some friends of my own age." However, my parents staunchly refused this suggestion. It would look bad. "We should care for our grandmother as a family," they said. Behind these platitudes, the actual care was left to others. Just last weekend, I had visited home and spent time with my grandmother. As usual, I helped with the garden and enjoyed afternoon tea while looking through old albums. "Allison, you always take such good care of me," my grandmother smiled gently. "But you need to take care of your own life too, just like I did when I was young." Looking at photos of her younger years, I thought about the choices she had made in her life. After the war, she worked as a nurse and raised my mother on her own. She was a strong, independent woman. The reality that my grandmother now needed someone to care for her tightened my heart. "Hey, Allison," my grandmother suddenly became serious. I don't want to take any more of your precious time because of me. I've been looking at brochures for facilities, like this one, which looks wonderful. My body is becoming less mobile, and I can't easily go outside anymore. I hate being bored. And I'm considering starting a new life in a new place to choose my own path. However, our conversation was interrupted by my mother's sudden return home. "Mother, we shouldn't be talking about this. We'll take care of you," she declared firmly. Her resolute attitude then ironically became a different reality now. Someone has to look after Grandma while everyone is in Hawaii. A silence followed. I already knew the answer. Me. But I'm supposed to be going on the trip. I'm sorry, Allison, but there's no one else to look after Grandma. Our parents need a vacation, and Lucy and Sophia have kids. What about respite care? I suggested. A professional care facility could take her for about 2 weeks. She could even socialize with people her age. No. Sophia's voice suddenly grew firm. We can't leave Grandma with strangers for 2 weeks. Maybe during the day, but not overnight stays. We're family, Allison. You might not understand, but we need to take care of our own. Those words struck me. Family. It had always been the magic word that moved me. Yes, this was a pattern that had continued for years, starting back in university. When I was a junior, Lucy suddenly decided to marry. "I'm getting married to Ryan," she announced after just 3 months of dating. Amidst our parents' worried looks, Lucy began dreaming aloud. A church wedding, a pure white dress, live music. "I want a beautiful wedding," she pleaded through tears. However, our parents couldn't afford to pay for everything. Then Lucy came to my room. "Allison, please. You're the only one I can rely on. We're family," she implored tearfully. As always, I had to help a family member in tears. I lent her my newspaper delivery job earnings for the dress. The ceremony indeed turned out to be wonderful. But then, the bills started coming to me. 2 years later, Sophia made a sudden decision. "I'm quitting university to start a graphic design company," she declared. She announced she was starting a design company. Our parents were strongly against it, but Sophia wouldn't listen. "If I don't start now, I'll miss the chance." "I'll definitely succeed," she insisted. I helped with the preparations for launching her company. However, Sophia's company did not take off as expected. Client issues, worsening financials. As expected, the company went bankrupt within a year. What remained was a debt of $20,000. "Allison, help me." Sophia called me in the middle of the night, and I poured all my entry-level salary into her debts. She promised monthly repayments, but those promises were never kept, and that brings us to today. Always bound by the word family, I have supported them in this way. I had sacrificed myself for it. But this time was different. That night, I held a glass of wine, looking out at the Manhattan skyline, thinking. Always the dependable one, always fulfilling responsibilities. That had been my role. Fulfilling my parents' wishes, supporting my sisters' lives, and now, even caring for my grandmother. But what about my life? I too had dreams and hopes. I pulled out a photo from my drawer. It was from 10 years ago, the day I graduated from university. Next to me in my gown, my parents and sisters smiled proudly. That day, my father told me, "Allison, you are our pride. You will surely lead a wonderful life." Those words became my driving force. But at the same time, they might have become a heavy chain. Meeting family expectations, making them proud, had become my mission. During lunch break, I went out with Michelle, my colleague and only friend who knew this situation. "To be honest, Allison," she started. While picking at her salad, Michelle said, "Your family takes it for granted that you will always be there to help. If I were in your shoes, I would have exploded by now. But it's because they're family." "That's exactly why." Michelle interrupted. "Because they're family, you should also value your own life. You're always giving. It's time you learn to receive." Her words pushed me forward. The next morning, I made up my mind. As soon as I arrived at the office, I booked a luxury resort in San Diego, a beachside hotel, for the same 2 weeks as my family's trip to Hawaii. I also arranged my flight tickets. After making the reservations, I told no one in my family. I submitted my vacation notice at work and wrapped up all the necessary handovers. In the weeks leading up to the Christmas break, the calls from my family increased. They discussed travel preparations and detailed instructions for my grandmother's care. I responded to all with understood, but internally, I was progressing with different plans. On the first day of the Christmas break, I quietly left my apartment. My suitcase was packed with summer clothes and swimsuits. I turned off my mobile phone and boarded the plane. Upon arriving in San Diego, the warm California sun welcomed me. The hotel was fantastic. The sunsets visible from my room with an ocean view was breathtaking, and I could read undisturbed on the private beach. The first few days were blissful. I attended yoga classes in the morning, spent afternoons at the spa, and enjoyed delicious meals at nearby restaurants in the evening. It was a luxurious time spent without having to care for anyone or meet anyone's expectations, just enjoying time for myself. On the fourth day, curiosity got the better of me, and I turned on my mobile phone. I was immediately hit by a storm of missed calls and messages. "Lucy, where are you? Grandma is alone. Sophia, I can't believe you would do something so selfish. Mom Allison, how could you let us down like this? Call us immediately. Dad Allison, what were you thinking? Come back right now." The messages continued, even from relatives. Aunt Susan criticized. "How could you abandon your family?" And Uncle Dan reproached. "You've let your parents down." That wasn't all. Lucy's husband, Ryan, reported, "The kids are crying," and Sophia's husband, William, sent a long, preachy message about valuing family bonds. I took a deep breath and blocked everyone. However, the content of the messages weighed heavily on me. As I sunbathed by the poolside, I began to question whether my actions were right. The only thing that troubled me was leaving my grandmother alone. But why should I always be the one to sacrifice everything? Is it fair that my vacation is taken away because my sisters have families and children? And above all, why wasn't I invited on the trip from the start? They took the travel expenses from me but planned to leave me as the caregiver. Is that really what a family should do? After 2 weeks, when I returned to my apartment, the entire family was waiting for me. They had interrogated Sarah about my travel plans in an almost threatening manner. My mother was crying, my father was trembling with anger, and my sisters were looking at me with eyes full of blame. "Let's hear your explanation," my father demanded. There was a severity in his voice I had never heard in my entire life. "There's nothing to explain," I replied calmly. "I'm also a member of this family. I deserve to enjoy a vacation." "But what about Grandma?" Sophia yelled. "We had to cancel our trip to Hawaii. We even incurred cancellation fees, and the kids were crying," Lucy said. "It was supposed to be a trip to honor our parents. How could you do this to us?" "Yes, it's all my fault," I said sarcastically. "But why wasn't I invited to the trip from the start? Why did you only take my money and plan to leave me as the caregiver?" Silence took over the room. Lucy began but couldn't continue. "We just assumed," Sophia admitted in a low voice. "You've always helped." "Yes, I've always helped." My voice trembled. I paid for my own university tuition with part-time jobs, managed the costs for Lucy's wedding, and helped Sophia with her debt repayments. But I did it because I love my family, not because it should be taken for granted. "But you're single and don't have a family," my mother said in a low voice. "You have the time and the money." Those words were the last straw. "Don't have a family." My voice trembled. "I do have a family. All of you are my family. But you don't treat me like family. I'm just a convenient tool, a convenient presence for you." "Allison, that's not what we meant," my father began. "I've had enough," I raised my hand. I've always said yes, always put my own life on hold to fulfill everyone else's wishes. But that ends now. What are you saying? Sophia asked. From today, I'm going to live my life. I'm done living according to everyone else's convenience. If you need help, ask, but don't assume it's my duty. And about Grandma, I've arranged for a nursing home. I've already discussed it with the facility. How could you? My mother screamed. Putting Grandma in a facility? Lucy's voice quivered. Yes, I'm putting her in a facility. There are professional staff there, and she can interact with people her own age. There's 24-hour medical care. It's the best choice for Grandma. Much better than shuffling family responsibilities among ourselves. And despite you all knowing she's wanted this, you've been pretending not to know, locking her up because of what people might think. My family was outraged. Words of anger and disappointment flew. My mother broke down crying, my father threatened to disown me, and my sisters accused me of changing. But I was no longer shaken. I entered my apartment alone. Outside the window, the Manhattan skyline shone. Where I used to find solace in that view, now I felt something different. A sense of strength and the anticipation of a new beginning. Weeks passed, and slowly the situation began to change. Initially hostile, my family started to accept the reality. My grandmother was adapting to the facility life better than expected. In the day room, she enjoyed playing cards with other residents, and she loved participating in the painting activities of the activity program. It's fun here, Allison, my grandmother, told me during my visit. I never thought I'd make so many friends. My parents, too, gradually began to soften their stance. Especially my father, who started to acknowledge that the care at the facility was truly the best choice for my grandmother. Lucy and Sophia and I hadn't fully reconciled yet, but their aggressive attitudes had subsided. Perhaps they too needed time to reflect on their actions. For the first time in my life, I was living for myself. I spent weekends on my hobbies, and I vacation wherever I want. At work, I've become more confident in expressing my opinions. Sometimes, my family tried to revert to old habits. They would ask for emergency babysitting or seek financial help. But I no longer said yes unconditionally. I'm sorry, but I'm attending an art class this weekend, I told them. The money I would have spent will go into my savings for the future. Initially, my family was taken aback by such responses. But gradually, they began to respect my boundaries. Surprisingly, this change had a positive impact on my relationships as well. I started interacting more at work and even found myself going on a date. His name was Nathan, an investment banker. He respected my career and understood my family dynamics. Recently, I received a call from my mother. It was a calm conversation, the first in a long time. Allison, you were right, she said in a quiet voice. We took you for granted. We should have valued your life and your dreams more. Tears welled up in my eyes, but they were different this time. They were tears of relief and new beginnings. Love is about giving and receiving. But one-sided sacrifice is not love. It took me 32 years to learn this lesson, but it's never too late. Now, there's a new photo on my desk. It's a selfie I took on the beach in San Diego. Next to it, there's a photo of my grandmother at her birthday party at the facility. She's surrounded by new friends, smiling happily. And now I can think about next month's family gathering with a sense of calm. There's no longer the same pressure as before. We're just meeting as equals, as family. Sometimes, life takes unexpected turns. But not all changes are for the worse. Sometimes, the hardest choices bring about the most necessary changes. My decision affected the entire family, but it led to a positive change. We are now building healthier relationships, understanding and respecting each other more.